a spirituality about beekeeping. I got into beekeeping simply because I wanted to learn about the bees and how they made wax. And in the process of doing that, beekeeping has transformed both my business and my life and how I see things.
Kind of plugging along. This is a baby hive. There's some pollen there.
It really becomes a wonderful symbiotic relationship where you see the bees as a fellow creature, and once you get past the anxiety of the sting and you can approach the hive and work the bees with your bare hands, it's a truly liberating feel. My name is Martin Marklin, and I am a liturgical designer for candles and furnishings for churches primarily throughout the country and worldwide. We will manufacture thousands of candles in the course of a year. Our candles are handmade and are 51% beeswax. That means we need to purchase roughly about 30,000 pounds of beeswax a year. In a beehive, you may have 50 to 60,000 bees, and you may get over 100 pounds of honey. But when it's all said and done, you only get about a pound or two of wax. So for 30,000 pounds of wax a year, that equates to roughly 1.5 billion bees that are working in the world for Marklin Candle. About 7 or 8 years ago, it dawned on me I had no clue how the bees did what they did, which was my livelihood. And I said, this is a bit silly. I need to know what goes on in my own craft.
Good morning, girls. How we doing today?
Today, I have over maybe 100, 150 hives. And in the process of doing that, I've transformed my life simply because the bee is a highly social organism. In fact, it can only live in a community. And that organism is truly, I feel, reflective of how the early church was. Each individual in a hive works not for itself, but for the community. St. John Chrysostom said in a homily, "The bee is the most honored of God's creatures, not because she labors, but she labors for others." In fact, the defensive mechanism of a bee, its sting, is a selfless act. When a bee stings for the sake of defending the hive, she will give up her life.
So if they sting you, they'll give off a pheromone. So by smoking, you can mask it so that they won't sting you again.
The other thing is there's a very sophisticated mechanism whereby the bees communicate with each other where the nectar source is, and it's called the waggle dance. And in the scientific community, the name that is given for this communication is called evangelization. The bees evangelize each other. They share the good news with each other on where their source is. And as a model for us, we Christians, like the bees, should share that information with all the people around us. I started Marklin Candle in 1985, my mom and dad's basement in St. Louis. Each of our candles is hand molded. A knot is tied into the wick, it's hand dipped, and then it's hand carved. It's tremendously satisfying to know that the works of our hands are going to go throughout the world and stand as the primary source for the light of Christ. We need to be the bee. What does a bee do? A bee forages and visits very beautiful flowers, takes nectar and puts it in her stomach and pollen on her legs and comes back and produces honey. And the analogy is we need to be the bee. We need to go into the world. We need to find that which is beautiful, gather it in, transform it in our own lives, and then give it back as something even more beautiful. And that's a great metaphor of what we need to be, I think, as Christians, as just as people in this world.